Hey everybody, PugGaming here. I'm back again collaborating with Paradox Interactive to bring to you some hints, tips and a bit more detail about the amazing mod Procedural Objects. And in this part 2 episode we're going to look a bit more into the advanced uses of Procedural Objects, and I'll show you a few examples of what is possible with this fantastic mod. So let's get going. So as we did in part 1, let's click on an object, let's convert it to PO and place it down. Now we're going to go and head into the edit mode of this particular building, and to do so you need to click on the plus sign and go to edit. Now depending on how complicated the building is, you'll see a lot of plus signs. Each one of these plus signs replicates an angle or a part of the building. You can click on them individually like so with your mouse, or if you hold down the control button you can select more than one. Once you've selected the nodes that you want to be moving around, you can do so by using either the keyboard or the mouse. If we start with the keyboard, you can use the D-pad, left, right, up and down to move these nodes around. You can also raise them up with page up and lower them with page down. It's also possible to select a number of nodes in one motion, doing so with the mouse. Hold down the right button on your mouse and drag across. Releasing will select the items you've clicked on within there. You can also move with the mouse button. Hold down the left mouse button on one of the red node crosses and move to your desired location. So that's the basis of using the edit mode within PO. Now I want to show you how powerful this actual mod is, and we're going to demonstrate by putting down this train station. So the plan for this is I basically want to remove everything relating to the train itself. So I want to remove the actual platform, these gates, and have left just the building itself. Now there's a number of ways you can do so with this. I'm going to go with a technique that I've kind of self-taught myself, and what we're going to try and do is basically select all the nodes that we know we don't want and basically lower them into the bottom of the earth. Now this is the part that does become quite difficult because you need to kind of think about how this model has been created. So I know if I click here and lower this down with the page down button, it's just going to take away the track. It's not going to touch the building, it's going to just do the platforms. So you can kind of tell by the way that the nodes are. For example, this section here, we can clearly see that that's just for that platform. There's no connecting parts to the building itself. And there will be times where you may take away the wrong bit, and unfortunately Procedural Objects does not have an undo button at the moment. So what I would recommend doing is, before you do any complicated bits, or if you've done a lot in a row that you're worried about losing, basically come out of PO, copy and then paste it so you've got an example model to go back to after. The way I do this is I take my time. I do little sections one by one. I don't rush it and take out big clusters. I'd rather take away smaller aspects and get it right rather than mess up and do larger ones. So here we're going to try and take away this roof, so you can almost see straight away that these nodes here are the ones connected to the roof. So we'll click on those and literally just move them into the building and then downwards. So you're always trying to put the bits you don't want either inside the model or absolutely at the bottom of the earth. So either way you should be able to hide the model away. Obviously if you was going to be raising this model up, you'd have to lower the items further down and sort of deal with the consequences after. But as you can see here, pretty simple. There's a few aspects here that will need to be hidden within the game, but the model itself has been transformed from a train station to just the station. Now not only that, but we can also make the size of this station smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a selection of the actual station and then just move it across. Simple as that. It does sometimes leave some flickering, but if you get them in the right spot and you move the right nodes, you can make a large station into a smaller one. Add some details and you've got yourself a fancy, very unique train station. Now having said that, that does cause some issues because Procedural Objects does actually remove all the functionality itself from the items that you turn into PO. So a house would no longer be housing people, a shop would no longer be commercial, but there are ways around this, and people have already created things on the workshop. For example, here we have the block services, and also Oculus has made some very nice blank residential, office and commercial blocks which work great. Or you can just add in some small shops or small houses into the building you're working on. Obviously depending on the size, you need to make sure that this fits inside the building and doesn't look ugly by popping out the top. I tend to try and match the doors up to make it look realistic when they walk in. One huge advantage of PO is the fact that when you do turn an object into a PO, you lose all the ground foundations and everything like that. So basically you can raise up these buildings and won't bring up the land, and the terraforming will not be touched at all. So what you can see on camera here now is I'm actually making this small apartment into a huge apartment block. And it's so easy to do. You basically just copy and paste the original building that you've made as a PO and just raise it up using the page up button to a height that suits your needs. This is perfect for working with terrains, and you can actually build buildings inside the terrain as well, which works brilliantly. You can lower buildings down into the ground as well to make them smaller than they actually are. The possibilities are endless. Now, I'm sure there's been a number of times where you have been building and you haven't quite been able to have the correct asset or the correct angled asset to fulfill the need that you have in hand. For example, here you can see I've got a sloped down little ship bay bit here that I want to try and fill in the gap, and without PO that would not be possible. So what I can do with PO is I can use the general tool here and use the rotation to get it to more of an angle to fit into this gap. I can then lower it down and fulfill the hole perfectly. Now, sometimes it looks a little bit complicated on stream and on camera, but once you get to grips with it, you can work out exactly what the buttons do. Sometimes, depending on how you place the actual asset, especially when it's a square, you don't know at the time which way is left or down or up or right. So it does take a little bit of time, but once you get there, it really is worth the effort. Another quirky feature of PO is the fact you can add customizable text. We're going to show this off with one of these road signs. So let's convert it to PO first of all, and then we'll click on it, place it down, go to the plus sign and click on edit. Once we're in the edit mode, we'll click on the text customization tab just here. Once that loads up, you'll see a new box opens which defines the area you're going to add the text to. This first cell is where you type your text, so let's put in London for example. We can then use the mouse and hover over and drag across the text to where we want it to be on the sign itself. It's quite good as well because the sign in actual real gameplay shows up, which is really handy. We can also change the text itself using this here, and there's a lot of other things you can change as well. You can change the size of the text, the spacing, and also the scale is also useful to change depending on how big you want the wording to be. Now, as standard, the text colour is white, which is kind of traditional for most signs, but you can change this using the RGB scrollers at the bottom just here. Dragging across will change the colour depending on what RGB settings you use. Once you have decided on the sign and you've got all the text down you want, you can also just copy and paste this as you do with normal assets on the procedural objects, and it will copy the text over as well, which is really handy if you want to do more than one sign exactly the same. Now, I think everyone would agree that PO has some amazing opportunities to be used within City Skylines. The possibilities are endless and we are always learning from each other of new techniques and ideas. And I was lucky enough to spend some time with Simon discussing a few of the possibilities for the future and a bit about the mod itself. So Simon, first of all, tell us, what was the biggest challenge of creating procedural objects?
This is a question I often get asked. The problem is that the biggest challenge with PO is to make it both flexible and easy to use. PO is definitely flexible at this point. It already contains a lot of features and the list is only going to expand in the future. That being said, I have to admit it is not that easy to use, and it can even sometimes be counterintuitive for people used to other 3D modeling softwares, and this is something that still requires a lot of work on my end.
I can certainly understand that, and to be honest, it was one of those things. The first time I used PO, I was overwhelmed with all the possibilities that there is, but after time it seems that you can really adjust to it quite quickly when you know what you want to do. And obviously tutorials such as this and others are always interesting to see and understand how to really use the mod. And I think that brings me nicely on to my final question for you, Simon. What is the future for PO?
PO hasn't been updated for almost a year now, but the next version is almost ready for release. Version 1.6 will include undo and redo, new text customization features, a new advanced edition tools window with various new features, and more. Cuboid, the creator of Move It 2, and I have worked on a compatibility between Move It and Procedural Objects, allowing to move POs with Move It, and this will be available when both mods are updated. As for the future of PO, I have some plans for animations and effects that will come in future updates, but don't expect it too soon.
So you've heard it here first, guys. The update sounds sensational. Thank you very much, Simon. Combining the two powerhouses of the game, Move It and Procedural Objects, is going to be a real game changer. I look forward to that greatly. And that brings us to the end of this part 2 of Procedural Objects. It's obviously difficult to show everything that's possible within the game, but I hope these examples have given you a bit of flair of inspiration to try out yourself. But that's it from me. Thank you all for your time and for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more brilliant videos just like this one, and I'll catch you again soon. Thanks for watching, and all the best.